Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Inlay Terms. I am your host, Payman Ascari, and I have my good friend Matthew Pauly, or Matt Perry, as I sometimes call him, back here. How's it going?
Very good. Very good. Thanks.
I've never been good with names, and it's getting worse with age.
Yeah. It's all that spike protein and stuff dropping from the skies,
What was it? Somebody was making fun of me that I couldn't remember anything, and he's like, "How much fluoride is there in the water where you?"
Well, that's why we got reverse osmosis in the house.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't got me one of those. Matthew, I guess Charlie Kirk, he got taken out. I think it was a political assassination.
Yes.
That's what they're framing it as, because he didn't get taken out because of his haircut or because he was drunk in public. He got taken out for his political views.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like everybody is waiting to see what's going to happen next. Like, is it going to be another summer of love? Does the left have another ace up their sleeve? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I mean, that before even trying to hazard a guess on that, I mean, I think that it's clear that there's no question this is a political assassination for a number of reasons. I mean, one, that the fact that it was he was an outspoken person who was constantly, oh, great.
Either you're frozen or you're very, very still. Well, while we're waiting for him to reconnect, let's go head over to Blue Sky. So Charlie Kirk was killed by a straight white young man from a Republican religious gun-loving family. Trump owes the Democrats in America an apology. I refuse to pretend that Charlie Kirk getting shot is some kind of analog to JFK or MLK. Kirk was a rage baiter, plain and simple. He helped Trump get elected by firing up the incels and Nazi wannabes with constant attacks on women, liberals, LGBTQ, etc. Guns are bad, and so was Kirk. He caused this. It's just the division between the centrist and the psycho left.
Oh my goodness.
Hey, man.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just filling the void by going over Blue Sky.
Yeah.
We'll try to power through this.
I should just say I have a fiber connection through Bell Canada, 3 gigabits per second. And I did a test before the interview. I'm getting a gigabit per second, which are 940 megabits per second. And it's so anything that we're experiencing now is not normal. It's interference. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, we kindly ask CSIS to stop using up your bandwidth. Just let us do our podcast. You were saying something about before we get to what's next.
Before we get to prediction of what's next, I mean, just want to comment that obviously it was a political assassination. There was, I mean, one of the major things, of course, is the fact that a private jet within 20 minutes or so of this happening, actually about 30 minutes, I believe, it was 12 minutes away in an airport right beside, that the area on that campus. And it was a private jet, and it took off. And within 30 minutes, it turns off its tracking beacon, which is illegal under FAA rules. And only after an hour and a half of flight time, it turned it back on when it was returning. So that's rather suspicious. And there's a guy a pilot who's looked up all the flights of this aircraft, and the owner's not listed. And that's the kind of thing you'd expect with a professional job. They've got some kid they're saying now is the guy, but there's inconsistencies in all that as well. And the fact when they do something like this and they make such a spectacle out of it, it's you have to ask who benefits, right? Well, if you're trying to create civil war in America and you wanted to maximally divide people and get them to go at each other, knocking off somebody who is obviously a good person, who's his whole thing. Let's just remind people, Charlie Kirk's whole thing was to debate people on campuses. And his point was, look, as long as we're talking and we debate, this is progress. And, it's when people stop talking that animosity grows and people are led to extreme measures like violence. and that by speaking, and debating, he said, if people disagree with me, come to the front of the line. Let's talk, because you should be able to debate based on your logic and your facts, and if not, maybe you will change your mind. I mean, the whole idea of the Socratic dialogue, it's this is a positive thing, and so therefore he was so effective at it that he represented, I guess, a real challenge to the narrative of the left.
I'm trying to bring up a video. I don't think I preloaded it, but it's funny, they're calling Charlie a coward, which is whatever, you believe whatever you want, but what they're saying is he's only debating children on campus, like he's not debating grown-ups. I'm like, wait a minute, man, these children on campus are more dangerous than grown-ups. They're killing everybody.
Yeah. First of all, he's the opposite of a coward. He is a very brave man, and it was only because of his fundamental beliefs in Jesus Christ that he was so brave and righteous in what he was doing. He was very brave, and so people will throw names at people, and it's very despicable to see people behaving in this way to a person who was killed for no reason. I mean, it's not justifiable. If you have a problem with him, debate him. If you have a problem with that, you think he's broken the law, then report him to the police, see if they can get a charge on him. But you don't just kill somebody like that. That's a political assassination, and it's violence like that is not going to make things better. It's going to really degeneration of a society, of a civil society. So yeah, they'll be throwing names at him.
You still there? So, all right, we'll kill some more time. F Comcast, Charlie Kirk was an advocate for hate. I can only imagine, like, when MLK was doing this, the Southern slave owners, or the remnants of the slave owners, were saying the same thing about him. I would probably call him a communist. In a speech about Charlie Kirk, Trump said he was admired by all. False statement. Some admired him, but most despised him. The man promoted hate and violence, traits many people detest. I wouldn't say most despised them. I'd say half the country, because it's so polarized. Half the country despises anything that the other half likes. The man promoted hate and violence. So this is the thing about the left. They always take the moral high ground. Everybody other than us is promoting hate and violence. Now do everything that we say because we're intolerant bigots. Charlie Kirk could have been an email. Hey, welcome back, man.
This is very alarming that we're being taken down like this, or I'm being taken down. But we just had.
It's fine because I have Blue Sky open, so we're filling the time for the audience.
Okay.
I wanted to say one thing, following up with what you said. Andrew Tate, who's quite a controversial figure, but he said, like, they didn't go after him when he was criticizing the government or the military or socialism. He goes, the moment they went after him, and he used the phrase global homo, but he goes, like, when he went after the LGBTQ community, that's when they came after him. And Charlie Kirk, like, the reason they took him out, because he was so effective at talking about LGBTQ, the nuclear family, which is the opposite of homosexual relationships, and abortion. And he was making it okay to talk about these things with the youth, which is, I think, why they took him out and not someone like you or me.
Yeah. He was very good at just debating, and I wanted to mention that there's a Manitoba MP, and she put out a post. Her name is Honorable Nahani Fontaine, representing St. John's. This is in Manitoba. She made a tweet in which she said that he was a racist, a fashionist, a misogynist. He just went on and called him all these names, and said, it was just atrocious what she said about him.
What's her name?
Her name is Nahani, Nahanni Fontaine, 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 Nahani Fontaine, and she made the most horrible statement about his death and about him, and it's being condemned quite huge. And I actually
it's hard to read.
Yeah, racist. There it is. You're racist, homophobic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, I'll read it since it's blurry. Charlie
Yeah.
Kirk was a racist, xenophobic, transphobic, Islamophobic, sexist, white nationalist mouthpiece who made millions of dollars inciting hatred in this country. And then it goes on.
Yeah. And this is a sitting member of a parliament in Canada, a provincial parliament in Manitoba. And she said that she hopes that she feels sorry for his children, not for him, and that hopefully that his children grows up in a society, in that last paragraph there, that's completely different from what the society that his father, their father was trying to build, which was, based on, people interacting and having, ability to speak, and, all these things that he stood for. And it's just
Sorry, I'm
yeah,
going to read the second paragraph.
sure.
Every one of these leftists has to mention the word Trump, whether it is his genocide denial, Israel, his transphobic tirades, his pushing for more mass deportations, or his normalizing Trumpism for years. The man stood for nothing but hate. The society has gotten so divided. It's like, it's mostly the left, but if you're not on my side, you're for hate. That's the message.
Yes, and there's this whole idea of hate speech is being defined as if you say something that somebody else makes them feel hurt or makes them feel angry, then that's violence, and you're equating speech with violence. And that's, first of all, it's just semantically and logically wrong. Oh, great, I'm gone again, eh?
Here we go again. All right, until we get Matthew back. Miss 8719, good morning. I can't share the feed. I don't know. I can't troubleshoot, but hopefully it's resolved itself. Class in session. Good to have you back, Don. What do we got? Prairie, how's it going? Do people know the definition of a child? A child is defined as someone that hasn't reached puberty. I guess, yeah, the shooter wasn't a child. There was but my view is if you snipe somebody from 600 yards away, you're probably no longer a child. No one could debate his beliefs. Yeah. And he was very civil about it, and he was forthright. And I have a different view. I think it has to do with abortion. Like there's certain pillars on the left that they just, it's sacrosanct to them. And if you dare even talk about it, they freak out. Abortion is one, transgenderism another, and it's mostly been settled, but homosexuality is the third. Like those are the three social issues that you can't talk about. They've made their peace with the fact that climate change just doesn't work. But this alphabet mafia doesn't want to give up their power, and they just assassinated this guy. I'm not saying it was a coordinated attack, but like you got all these people that are either mentally deranged or they've been told over and over again these people are Nazis. It's only a matter of time until one of them does something like this. And the left, they can't accept that. They're just in a position where they feel that they're wrong, but they can't ever be wrong because they're the left. Oh, geez. Minister of Family Services, I believe she is. Yeah, I don't know who she is. I saw that. It's the language. There's a commonality in the language. Hate. Donald Trump, fascist. The left have used the word so much. I don't know which word you mean, but there's like a billion of them. I agree. Good morning, Robert, by the way. Do we have hey, welcome back.
Hi, I've switched us from my fiber optic 3 gigabit connection to hotspot on my phone, which will be fine until they decide to attack my cellular connection. So
they're standing outside with a disruptor cannon pointed at your house.
It's actually happened recently. It started when I interviewed Alex Newman, mainstream journalist, and Todd Callender, the founder of CloutHub, who is a former military lawyer, and he's sued the U.S. government over the mandates to the military to get the shot. And now he's got another class action suit against the government. So that interview was just like this. We just kept getting knocked off and knocked off and knocked off. And it doesn't matter if I'm using my VPN, which is a high-end VPN, a very good quality, and connecting different nodes, doesn't matter. Or no VPN, and I have a gigabit per second of bandwidth. But as soon as I go on these interviews, this is what happens. So this is a form of censorship, right? This is like, might as well be in this former Soviet Union at this point in Canada. If they've identified you as a voice they don't want to be heard, they'll make you not heard, right?
Well,
Anyway,
yeah, you got to hand
so
it to them. They're persistent.
yeah,
Do you remember your train of thought, or do you want to?
yes, the Trump derangement syndrome. You see, people who have been watching the CBC, I mean, I confessed 15 years ago when the CBC first started covering Trump, and I was then naive. I was convinced that Trump was evil. And the problem is that when you have mainstream television, not just on one channel, I mean, for sure, the CBC, but also because since 2018, when the government, the Trudeau Liberals started paying off mainstream media with $500 million to all the mainstream media, including newspapers and television. And then they did it again. They renewed that and did another 500 million, and now it's institutionalized. The mainstream media, including the Toronto Star, the Globe and Mail, and National, they're all taking money from the government, which means they're reinforcing. They've changed their line now. They're basically supporting the government narrative. So anyway, so people are giving nonstop messaging about this Trump derangement syndrome, because why? He's the threat to the globalist forces that our government represents, and so the Biden government in the States. I mean, let's not forget, Carney is a former board of trustee or board of director of the World Economic Forum. He's also a UN special envoy on climate finance and action or something like that, and a former central banker, Bank of England and Bank of Canada, and CEO of Brookfield. I mean, it's... Yeah.
CEO of Brookfield. We'll pick that up when he comes back in. Let's go to the comments. Robert Bard, these words are used improperly so often that they have no meaning anymore. Yeah, I don't. It's getting to the point where what was it? Michael Scott from The Office. He's like, these are just words. They don't mean anything. It's the same thing now. Like, I can't tell people, the country's becoming communist. I have to use basic building block words. I want to live in a world where 90% of decisions are made by the family. It's like things that everything in that sentence, everyone understands. Like, there's no disagreement on what a family is, what the number 90% means. It's the only way. If you use these big words, socialist, communist, progressive, fascist, Marxist, Leninist, it means something different to everyone. Yeah, the guy had to wear body armor talking to children on campus. It's insane.
Yeah, so I'm back, and that's interesting. So as soon as
Mark Carney, you were saying Mark Carney is on the World Economic Forum.
Yes, and of course he was the former board of director or board of trustees member, and he's very intimate with that organization and played a central role in it. And don't forget, their goal is the Great Reset, which involves taking away all your money. You will own nothing and be happy through public-private partnerships, making government now tightly wedded to large corporations, and there's no input from the citizens anymore. It's just basically we're run by a corporate government, which is what's known as corporatism. That's Mussolini's word for it, who was, after all, a fascist. So, yeah, that's very bad news. And of course, the UN Special Climate Action Finance Envoy and former central banker, Bank of England and Bank of Canada. So, yeah, when you have globalist governments like this, they absolutely can't stand Trump because he's standing up against the globalist agenda. He doesn't want United States sovereignty completely compromised by giving over, basically rights to declare lockdowns on them by the WHO and all that stuff. So he's rejected the pandemic agreement. He's rejected the Davos crowd. And the point is that when the media that's getting this funding from governments, which, in Canada's case, they just reinforce that narrative. And then you have this hate that they have, that the left hates that Trump, and anyone on the right, but specifically Trump. It's called, Trump derangement syndrome. And that then you see political violence, because people, when they start equating someone who's speaking, they disagree with them as violence against them, which is the whole thing they're saying about speech. If it makes you feel hurt or makes you feel angry, then it's violence against you. Then people feel justified about using violence in response. And this bodes, not well for Canada, obviously. And in the UK, of course, they've introduced it, essentially something just like the Online Harms Act, which this government introduced. Actually, said it might have been under Trudeau when that started, and then they dropped it when they reset their legislative session. But we expect that to come back, and just literally September 15th, as soon as Parliament's sitting, that's probably the most priority bill for them, because what it's going to mean is that people like you and I, any voices they don't like, they can go back to every social media post you've done in the past. It's retroactive, and then all I have to have is one person that looks at, who's anonymous, by the way, and says, "Oh, this makes me feel unsafe, or hurt and angry and unsafe." Then that goes to the Human Rights Tribunal, and automatically it's 98% conviction rate. And these aren't even real judges, right? They're political appointed ideologues. You know where else in the world they have a 98% conviction rate?
China, Iran.
Yeah. So we're going to have a court like that. $70,000 fine per post. 20,000 goes to the person anonymous to us who doesn't like our post. 50,000 goes to the government. It's going to create a whole cottage industry of people online all day long submitting things to the Human Rights Tribunal, things that they look at this post, it makes me feel uncomfortable and not safe, right? So it's really, really draconian. And right now in the UK, they've already got this, and thousands of people have been put in jail. That's not an exaggeration, for Facebook posts and then they come to your door and they take you away. So we expect that bill C63 to come out under a new number as soon as September 15th.
$75,000. We got hit with 28,000 for going into forest. Oh, you dropped out. We'll pick up when you come back. Let's see what Blue Sky, what trash they're talking about today.
I'm back.
Oh, you're back. That was quick. Yeah, 75,000. Like, who's going to pay for this? Nobody has money.
Well, what it's going to do, it's going to bankrupt anybody who they want.
You and me.
Basically, it's a way of criminalizing dissent. So if you speak against the government narrative, they'll just get somebody to report your post as one of your posts that they feel is making them feel not happy and not safe, and that's it. Because it's 98% conviction rate, and you just lost $70,000.
What do you think the left is going to say to this? Because the left is the ideological wing of moral superiority. What are they going to say? Oh, well, if you had nothing to hide, or Matthew Pauly is lying, that'll never happen.
Well, I think that they would think that because it's a very globalist left government. I mean, it's basically Marxian. I mean, he's talked about this, for example, this home equity tax to fund his net zero initiative, which, by the way, is going to cost about $10 trillion over the next 5 years or so, 5 to 10 years, 10 trillion. And so the only way he's going to raise money for that is assess this home equity tax. So this is going to be a way of dividing Canadians between those who have been working a long time and managed to get a home, and they have some equity in it, and basically they're going to now assess a tax, let's say 50% or 100% on your home equity, and it's due now. It's like you have to pay this at your next income tax return, even though you haven't sold your house, which is going to bankrupt a lot of people. They'll have to sell their homes. This is a form of wealth redistribution. It's socialism. It's communism. Don't forget, they've promised us, the World Economic Forum, you will own nothing. Well, how do you make people own nothing? You assess taxes on them so they can't afford their assets anymore. You can't. Who's going to afford a home if now any equity that you have is going to be taxed at 50 or 100% on your next tax return? So it's only the 1%, which is that right? As per usual socialism, capitalism, there's an exclusion, right, to the people who are at the very top of the organization in the government. And look at how much. First of all, I mean, he doesn't even have a house here, Carney, right? His houses are in the States. I mean, unless I missed something.
They're in the Bahamas.
Yeah, well, his wife and his children, or his wife is working in the States. They have a house in the States, and of course, he has. We don't know even where his assets are held. Although we do know.
Remember the kerfuffle when it was found that Max had a home in Florida, and the media just went crazy with it. Now we have a prime minister that hasn't lived here. He's got multiple passports. He gave them up just before. Yeah, they parachuted him in. He's got a home in every country on the planet. Bank accounts hidden everywhere. Nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's not right. Yeah, and furthermore, there's nothing wrong with Maxine having a home in Florida. There's a whole class of people called snowbirds, which are, you know, older Canadians, senior citizens who go down to Florida for 6 months a year, and some of them will actually buy a property down there. There's nothing wrong with that. So yeah. Anyway, so getting back to the agenda kind of here. So we're going to talk. I think we were going to also mention. Okay, so first the online harms act. We must well get that out of the way. Okay, this is a huge problem. If this gets reintroduced, it's basically going to be like the Soviet Union, where people are just thrown into jail because they posted something online 10 years ago that the government doesn't like, and somebody will report it. So the second thing people should know is that the UN is all coming from these global unelected organizations. The WHO, the UN, the World Economic Forum, this One Health, UN One Health it's called. And it's embodied in what was called the Pandemic Preparedness Prevention Act, C293, which, as you'll see in my headline there, I co-founded a committee of basically just, you know, concerned citizens that we realized this was a huge threat to Canadians' health, because they're going to impose, it's right in the bill here. There's a one-page press release that you can get by just going to, well, maybe we put a link to that if we could in the show notes afterwards.
You're talking about the press release that you shared with me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll bring it up. It'll be a little bit hard to read, but I think we lost you again. I mean, I can't, it's a picture. I can barely read it over here. Full text. This bill grants vague and unlimited powers to restrict what Canadians eat, where and how they live, their freedom of movement. Without any evidence, these measures reduce pandemic risk. The bill uses pandemic preparedness as a cover to deceptively implement WHO amendments and UN Agenda 2030 global governance by unelected foreign NGOs, like the World Health Organization and the UN, and tramples on the rights and freedoms of Canadians. That's par for the course. A bill with such sweeping powers to restrict rights and freedoms requires public input before it reaches third reading in the Senate. The Senate is duty-bound to vote no on C293. Blacklock's reporter, Tom Korski, why did the cabinet refuse to permit a judicial inquiry into pandemic mismanagement? Sorry, I was just reading this.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Is that Blacklock's?
This is the one you gave me.
Oh,
it's super small to read. I can barely read.
Yeah. So what people should know about this bill, which we fully expect the Carney government to reintroduce under a new number, and it's maybe change the name slightly. The first clauses I want to bring your attention to is there's 4 clauses that decimate animal agriculture in Canada, including clause section 3.2 KIII, promote commercial activities including the production of alternative proteins. That means, you know, lab-grown meat like Gates has got, and of course insect protein. The government already invested in a insect protein factory in London, Ontario, which is, I think, almost shuttered at this point. Another clause, 3.2 LII, regulate commercial activities, including industrial animal agriculture. So they're going to introduce a whole bunch of regulations, including phasing out commercial activities. This is 3.2 L1B or 4, including those that involve high-risk species. Oh, so birds are subject to bird flu, so they're a high-risk species probably. Let's see, swine are subject to swine flu, so maybe they're a high-risk species. And cattle might get, you know, some sort of cattle virus, and therefore, bovine. You know, yeah, exactly, bovine encephalitis or whatever. So they're going to basically phase out meat agriculture in Canada, and changes in land use 3.2 MI, which include expropriation of farmland, because they believe, not they, but this is all from the UN, that somehow global warming is causing the animals to flee to the poles, north and south, and therefore they're coming more into contact with people and farmland, And anybody who's got farmland that's bordering on a wild area, we got to get rid of them. They got to expropriate their land and move them into 15-minute cities. They're going to get rid of our food supply, is what they're working on. This is a classic thing that totalitarian governments have done. Look back in time. It involves mass famine. That's what they do to get rid of people. And that's the third one, changes in land use. And the last one is 32MII, regulate or phase out live animal markets. Well, this is how farmers, they have to get new genetic stock. So they'll go to buy a bull, and then they go to an arena, and they lead the bull through, and they show the bull, and then they bid on it, right? Well, now you can't have live animal markets. So that's going to decimate the ability of farmers to get new stock in, unless they want to, like Amazon, and so about ordering bulls on Amazon. It's crazy. You can't.
It comes in this big box.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. The most important thing here, in addition to taking away it's going to be way too costly to eat meat when you wipe out 50% of the producers, right? Multi-sectorial. This is it. One Health. This is sections considerations 3A. So One Health is a UN concept, was come up by these people who believe that animal, human, plant, and ecosystem health, otherwise known as a welfare interface, and the welfare interface, these are all to be considered as equal. So this supports what Gavin Newsom was doing in California, where he was restricting the water to Southern California, which made the Palisades fire extremely lethal, because there was some minnow in some lake along the way that was.
Oh, he'll be back. Minnow. Let's remember that. Over to Blue Sky.
Okay, I'm back.
Oh, you were talking about a minnow.
Yeah. So because of this minnow, there was a small, tiny little fish. They shut off the whole water supply to the south, and it meant that farmers, was very hard to grow because the water was so being rationed in California. And so they're basically equating this invasive species of a tiny little fish with the importance of human health, growing food, and that's what One Health does. One Health.
I'm laughing. Minnow lives matter.
Yeah, exactly. So this One Health is absolutely anti-human. That's what it is. And also they've got contact tracing of persons exposed to infectious diseases, sections 3.2I, 1V, and K2. Set out cooperative measures or agreements on disease outbreak and prevention preparedness between the government of Canada and other foreign governments and key international organizations, including the World Health Organization, the United Nations Environment Program, the World Organization for Animal Health, WOHA. By the way, WOHA, this organization is the one that has the stamp out policy. That's why they're going at the CFIA is going to try and kill these 400 ostriches. If one animal is exposed, through a PCR test, which we know is fraud, these PCR tests run at 40 cycle thresholds are 97% false positives. Oh no, I have to open the door. 1 second. My wife's locked up. I'll be right back. I'm coming.
Can we get to Blue Sky in time?
Welcome.
You mentioned Charlie Kirk was celebrated by Republicans as a charismatic advocate, but you never mentioned how he was widely criticized by everyone else for his
sorry about that. This World Organization of Animal Health stamp out policy is responsible for 9 million chickens being culled in British Columbia so far in the last year or two. I mean, 9 million chickens. And so think how brain dead this is. You've got a group of, say, ostriches they say are exposed to H5N1. How do they know they were exposed? Because there was a couple of dead birds and ostriches that were on the ground for 18 hours. And then they came out there and did the old PCR test on them, took a little sample of blood, and did a PCR test back at the lab. They won't release how many cycle thresholds the test was. Anything over 24 is starting to generate false positives, right? And they didn't even, look at the animal's health. Right, we know from what we learned in 2020 and 2021, and the guy who invented the PCR process, Kerry Mullis, you cannot diagnose infection with a PCR test. It's never designed for that. Matthew, it's incapable. Yeah.
Let me jump in here.
Yeah.
You're telling me this stuff, and it makes sense to me because I know it too. I followed it.
Yeah.
If you go to somebody in the urban center on the left,
Yeah.
you know, they'll just look at you, and they'll default back to Charlie Kirk. You know, they'll be like, "Oh, you're just you're a fascist like Charlie Kirk. You're a conspiracy theorist." And
Well, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, like, the reason they took out Charlie Kirk is because they want to make it so that people like you and I, we can't go have those discussions with people to rationally, you know, educate them, because
Yes.
now it's just too dangerous.
Yes. You know, unlike Charlie Kirk, I supported the NDP in my youth, and then briefly, for a little bit, I actually supported the Liberals. I was a diehard, you know, leftist growing up because my father was a leftist sociologist and anthropologist, and I went door to door campaigning for the NDP in Saskatchewan for like two different occasions for different elections. And the thing is, it wasn't until I was in a university setting where someone came up to me like a Charlie Kirk. It happened to be a professor, and befriended me and had me over for dinner with him and his wife and debated me. And I realized they had the facts, and all I had was ideology. And they started to educate me, and I read, you know, a bit of Adam Smith and realized that, you know, capitalism is the idea that capitalism is an evil thing is absolutely propaganda and false. More people have come lifted out of poverty from capitalism than any other political system. And anytime communism is, you know, imposed, there's a lot of death and a lot of, you know, you can't run a centrally planned economy. Look what happened to the Soviet Union, right? Look how many people, millions of people have died, like 100 million in the last century.
Look what's happening to Canada.
Well, yeah, look at Canada. Do you realize people should know that we have? Okay, I'm back.
Welcome back.
Apparently, my comments on communism were not welcome. So anyway, so this is absolutely a disaster, this bill. And border control measures. Align approaches and address any jurisdictional issues. That's 3.2c. So right in the bill, it says they're going to basically take over jurisdiction of the provincial government and you know, Aboriginal or First Nations, or, you know, they're basically just taking over the Constitution with this bill. And it's going to mean as well that now they're going to adopt, if you read what this says, they're going to essentially adopt the pandemic measures. It says right here, set out cooperative measures or agreements or disease. I read this before, on disease outbreak and prevention and preparedness between the government of Canada and any other foreign governments and key international organizations, including the WHO, the UN, WOHA, an agriculture organization of the United Nations. So basically, we're going to be run by the WHO. And this is the Canadian government said that they're going to support this pandemic agreement, and they have to ratify it. Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. I thought that we would at least get one PPC candidate in to pull the country towards the center, to be honest. That didn't happen. I was hoping that Alberta independence would gain more steam. I don't think it's happening. My last hope is one BC with Dallas Brody. But do you think that the Conservative Party of Canada, like, is there a way for us to recapture it and turn it into more of a populist party? Is it possible?
My first instinct is, once a political party has been captured by globalism, and I mean, we go back in history, right? It was actually under the Harper government that they adopted the UN Agenda 2030 originally. And they actually changed the law, a piece of legislation, to set the framework for adopting the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. So once that's become mantra in the party, for them to back away from that, you know, they would have to have a whole coming to Jesus moment, if you'll pardon that, because basically that whole globalist vision is all about dispossessing the middle class of their wealth and freedoms, and basically having us all living in 15-minute cities. And it's all based on the fraud that the climate is boiling, and that, you know, it's all because of man-made CO2, and that's just false. You know, the evidence is not there at all. In fact, the evidence is to the contrary. If you look at the independent scientists, geologists, the independent climatologists, ones that aren't taking money from the government that have endorsed these agendas, or money from corporations that endorse these agendas that are making money off of it. The independent ones will tell you it's not CO2 that causes warming. It's actually solar cycles of the sun. And that's normal. We've been going through this for millions of years. And after a few years of increased solar activity, you get greening in the planet, as we've seen. You have a minor increase in temperature, greening of the planet, and after 400 to 800 years later, then you'll see the CO2 rise. In the interim, you'll saturate the ocean, which is like a carbon sink. And after 400, 800 years, you get more CO2 in the air. And by the way, the level of CO2 that we have now is basically low, very low. We're coming out of what was called a minor ice age, just a few hundred years ago. So more CO2 is good for us at this point. It's plant food, and we've already seen the minor greening from the normal, more increased solar activity, that the crops are growing better, and there's more forestation and such. Anyway, I digress. The point is that the whole agenda from the UN is anti-human. It really is, and it's to take away our livelihood as middle class people. We won't be able to own anything anymore because it's taxed away from us.
Matthew, to go back to my question again, I'm just trying to think. I ran for the PPC, and it didn't work.
Okay,
I'm thinking, like, how do we get Canada out of this mess? Is the Conservative Party even salvageable?
I mean, maybe a payment. I mean, if they actually, the thing is that once they have bought in to that whole globalist agenda and institutionalized it, and now have a record of passing laws to support it, and no matter what the current leader says about, oh, no one from the left will be in my cap.
You're back.
The short answer is I think that it's unlikely that we'll see the CPC actually toss their golden goose, because they're now making money. They're getting corporate donations, and the globalists are supporting them. So I think that it has to be a third party. And so far, only the PPC has come out and said, that's it. We're not going to do any of that globalist stuff. But I'd like to get back to your point. You were disappointed about someone not winning. Do you really think that we had a free and fair election? We had 17,000 complaints up to Elections Canada, and the highest we'd ever had was 4,000 in the past. We know there's about...
No, I go back to our prime minister. The guy didn't live here. The guy has multiple passports. He's never run for office, and they parachute him in.
That's right.
And no one in Canada even bats an eyelash. Yes. Like it's just it's elbows up. Let's just go along with this.
Yeah, in a way, if you want to, it's important to understand your adversary there. That, I mean, what they did was a multi-decade propaganda thing against the whole wokeism. It was supporting the whole wokeism thing, and then as soon as Trump came along, anti-Trump, and they created such hate, towards that America, that all he had to do. I'm sure they modeled this on doing basically surveys, and they modeled this before they did it, this whole elbows up thing, because let's face it, right? Canadian identity, a good deal of Canadian identity is, oh, we're not American. So when you have an 800-pound gorilla next door, an economy that's 10 times as big, we have this sort of thing about, oh, we're better than Americans, right? Oh, look at them, they have all these guns and they have gun violence, which, by the way, now we know, in fact, our rate of violent crime is higher than America. Our rate of nonviolent crime is higher than America. Why? Because following the globalist thing of the UN replacement migration, and mass increase of that, and not people that have been selected according to the point system, that it's mostly asylum seekers, right? And so we're not getting people that are matching in, they're going to integrate well. And not only that, but because of all the money printing and wasting money, like 26 billion sent to Ukraine in weapons and cash, not to mention the 11 billion sent under Trudeau for gender programs in countries in the Southern Hemisphere. I mean, just massive waste. Look how the billions put into buying a pipeline, 5 billion approximately, which they just shuttered down. So they paid off a company and just stopped the development of it. How about the billions in EV battery plants that now they've actually, not produce one battery and are shutting down. Like the wasteful spending. And let's not forget that when you send these billions and billions and billions to Ukraine, that is the capital of money laundering, right? In the Western Hemisphere. Money laundering, child trafficking, and drugs, right? So you know that there's money, they've traced it from the United States. Money comes right back to some of the Democratic Party people. So anybody who thinks that there's not a self-interest involved is naive. Anyway, so I digress. The point is just that the amount of mismanagement of the economy is what's resulting in people not being able to. We have 2 million Canadians going to food banks, and there's a direct correlation between poverty and crime increasing. And also, if you do a massive amount of immigration, you're going to get more crime as well, because you have people now who are trying to, they're on the bottom of socioeconomic. Well, initially when they come in, they're doing very well. They're doing better than most Canadians because of the massive amount of spending they're doing, putting on hotels and providing all these programs. But it's causing, they do this deliberately. They want people to have a division between the new immigrants and the existing population. They want the division, just like in the States, knocking off Charlie Kirk is to create division, further division between the right and the left, right? They're trying to constantly divide us. And we just got to remember, we need to pull together. We need to find things that are in common. And we need to, we should mention the We Unify conference.
Sure, let's do that. I have a hard stop. I got a episode coming up. Before we do We Unify, roll the dice. As Canada or parts of Canada need to adopt a constitutional republic with free market and dump the current way Canada operates. Thoughts?
Yes, I agree. And I really hope that that's what Alberta does. I remain.
We're on the edge of our seats to see what he's going to say.
Oh, wow, I'm back.
Yes, you remain.
I remain skeptical that the leader of Alberta is really committed to making this happen, but we'll see. And also that the Carney government will not throw wrenches into the plan. But if they do, I think they have every reason to just declare independence. And I don't think they're going to get away with throwing in tanks and soldiers to stop them. I think America would not let that happen.
Agreed.
And there's also a possibility here that the Monroe Doctrine might come into effect, which means America cannot put up with European expansion into North America. And what Carney is doing since he's taken power is signing agreements for defense and security and trade with Europe to make us like part of Europe. And he's committed to us to give $5 billion. Is it $5 billion or $3 billion? I believe it's $5 billion to rearm Europe, and signed us on to $150 billion program in Europe to raise money for defense. And I don't know if that's just the $5 billion that we're on the hook for or more. The idea of us with 80% of our trade and 95% of our security and defense is from our relationship with the United States. And everything he's doing is sabotaging our relationship with the United States, and therefore causing terrorists. It's causing massive amounts of taxes and problems with the economy, and people are losing their jobs. And now he's going to come up with austerity programs in the fall.
Do you want to quickly talk about the We Unify conference before?
This is a wonderful thing, and I'm looking forward to it because it's putting together a whole bunch of people that are important people that have made real contributions to freedom in the last couple of years. And doctors and lawyers and people who are standing up for personal freedoms and Canadians, our values. And they're not really globalist. They're Dr. Robert Malone, Lara Logan, great journalist, Stockwell Day, Viva Frey, Michelle Ferrari, yes, all these people. Bruce Party, yeah, these are all great people to, I confess I'm actually signed up for this, so I'm looking forward to this. And
you're going to be there, so I'll see you there.
Yeah.
I wonder what security implications the Charlie Kirk shooting will have, because people might not know this, but the reason that Jonathan Bauer moved the conference from Victoria to Calgary is because he couldn't find a venue. Every time he gets a venue, Antifa goes in and threatens the owner of the venue, and they cancel them.
Yes. There was that X space last night about the Unified conference, and you know, a lot of the time people were talking about what just happened with Charlie and Charlie Kirk, and people are really, you know, alarmed, as they should be, about this. This is political violence is unacceptable. And I mean, we had so many Canadians that died in wars to protect us from fascism and from communism, and we just got to make sure that people remember about what Canada is and what our Constitution is, and to respect other people's right to have different opinions. It's not violence to have different opinions.
Thank you very much. Good point to end on. I have to go for another episode.
Okay.
So can you tell the audience where they can go to follow you, learn more about you, support you?
Well, sure. The Stop C293 committee, we're still going on in X. That's just @ Stop C293 TCOMTEE. And of course, Matthew Pauly 13. So MATTHEW PAULY 13 is my Twitter user ID. So thank you so much, Payman, for your time today.
No worries. I'm assuming you got kicked off of X 12 times.
I think it's almost a record. Yes. No. No. Off of this interview 12 times. Yeah. No, X, I've never been kicked off. Yeah, okay, Elon. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on, and a big thank you for the audience for participating. Bye, guys.